Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's our passion to help everyone live healthier lives and improve their fertility through natural means. And detoxing from plastic chemicals with resources like our Detect and Detox Kit is an important way to help balance your hormones, but it's not the only option. Our body actually needs specific nutrients through diets and supplements that can help our cells function properly. And one of these key nutrients for our hormone health is magnesium. Actually, up to 20% of the population in developed nations actually have a magnesium deficiency. That's why we're really excited today to be joined by Dr. Barb Woegerer. Dr. Barb is a licensed naturopathic doctor practicing in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She also provides naturopathic telemedicine and virtual services through the Ontario Telemedicine Network for many patients in the province of Ontario. Dr. Barb is also a magnesium expert, so we're really excited to pick her brain about this crucial mineral for our hormones. So I'm going to see minutes. Oh, hello. Hi, Dr. Barb.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? You joined without any problem, which is so awesome.
I didn't get the notification now, but I'm here. Happy to see you, and thanks for inviting me to be on yours.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time. This is a really, really interesting and much needed to be taught topic. So I'm so glad you're able to, really educate us about magnesium.
Yes, it is a very important mineral, and I talk about it.
Okay, so before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself and then like how you became a naturopathic doctor.
Yes, so I'm interested in healthcare and in health and wellness. I was actually in a very different field prior to becoming a naturopathic doctor. So I was in the insurance. So I was seeing our clients from a life insurance and disability perspective, and having to do their intakes for their health conditions and stuff. It just kind of drove me down a path where I was like, okay, I want to really work with people and help them empower their health and give them tools and modalities that they can use to improve health and wellness, and as well be an advocate for their health.
And for those who might not, who might be unaware, what is naturopathy?
So, naturopathic medicine is really a form of medicine that involves the entire person, the whole person. So, we try to find the root cause of what's going on, whatever the health condition is, and we take into account the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of health when we are looking at that whole picture. But we also educate our patients. We tools so that they can, go out and have a healthy lifestyle and know what to do. And we do use evidence research medicine. We have modalities that include botanical medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture. We supplement the nutrition and often work in coordination with other medical doctors when we are co.
Yeah, and then I mentioned a little bit in the introduction that magnesium is actually really important for our hormones. And but how does backtrack a little bit? How does a naturopathic doctor or naturopathic medicine help patients balance their hormones?
Right. And this goes back to what I was mentioning. So when we're looking at hormones, we can't just look at hormones in isolation, but we have to look at the whole body. We have to look at entire lifestyle factor approach. So how we help individuals with their hormones is through diet, is through sleep, is through stress management, mindset, exercise. All of these components play a role in how your hormones function, how they are metabolized, and how they are produced in the body.
Yeah, you mentioned about diet. So, and then obviously you can get some magnesium through diet. So what role does nutrition play in hormones in general?
Yeah, it plays a big part, right? So we know that food provides the nutrients that we need in order for our body systems to actually function. And that includes production, metabolism, detoxification. And if we're talking about hormones, it's of those hormones. So produce, manufacturing, and then, of course, eliminate or being able to detoxify those hormones. Therefore, if we don't get enough of the right food, then often have hormone imbalances. So we know that hormones require certain nutrients. We also know that they require certain amounts of protein and healthy fats in order to function. We have to remember that cholesterol is required size, estrogen, progesterone, and are often the backbone of many of our hormones. So we want to look at like fruits and vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables specifically help to metabolize a lot of hormones, namely estrogen. We want to look at prebiotic and probiotic foods because we know hormones are made in the gut. And so we need to support the gut. And the gut is always a piece of everything. And then, of course, we want to have lots of omega-rich foods. These are healthy fats and, things like avocados, olive oil, those kinds of things. And they, like I mentioned, are really important when it comes to hormone production.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, not just for hormone, but literally how we feel and then our entire bodily functions all depend on everything you just said.
Yeah. Yes. And it's really, it can be taken out, like not just for hormones, but for everything, right? So I know we're concentrating more on hormones, but we really need to apply that to a lot of our health.
Absolutely. So now magnesium, our like star topic today. How does the magnesium influence our hormones?
So magnesium, just backing up a little bit and giving a little background on magnesium. It's a mineral and it's fourth most abundant mineral in our body. It has a lot body. So it's close to 80% that and they're going about hormones today, but it does so many things that impacts those hormones. I'm going to go through the top ones that are most. So we know magnesium supports our thyroid function. Mm-hmm. Thyroid, when we convert T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone, to T3, we need magnesium in order to do that. We also know that estrogen, which has to be broken down in the liver first, when we have thyroid hormones that are not optimal or something like hypothyroidism, that whole process slows. So then we have the risk of building up body. So we need a functioning thyroid and thyroid hormone conversion in order to metabolize and get rid of that excess estrogen. And so magnesium helps to convert that inactive T4 to T3. We also need adequate amounts of thyroid hormone for your ovaries to make progesterone. So if you don't have enough thyroid hormones, you're likely not going to. So in that respect, thyroid becomes very important. And magnesium helps in the production of all of the hormones. So that estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of those things.
So I'm going to have to interrupt you for a little bit. We got several users saying the internet connection is a bit choppy. So maybe, I think it's fine on my end, but your side is slightly choppy. Would it be okay to rejoin again? I wonder if that could be the issue.
Oh, I find it's fine on my side. I don't have any, and I see you, no problem. And yeah.
Could any users tell us like if I'm fading out or Dr. Barb is fading out? So maybe we can like fix this. Yeah, everyone's saying it's cutting out a bit.
Okay. Is it the voice or is it the video?
I think it's a voice on my end it's a little bit choppy. Yeah. Oh, okay, Dr. Barb. So
okay.
Thank you everyone. So
can you hear me now? I can't hear you now.
Can everybody hear me?
Can everyone hear Dr. Barb?
Can you hear me correct? Like, can you hear me well now?
So
I'm
someone
just
says-
wondering. I had it leaning up. We got some hearts. Better.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, maybe I have to hold the phone because I had it leaning up against something, and maybe it's impacting the speaker. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that might be the issue. Okay, now it's like a lot better. Okay.
Okay,
so
good.
Maybe we can go back and then re-explain a little bit, the role magnesium play and how does that influence our hormones so everyone can hear all the good stuff.
Right, right. So what I was saying was that magnesium actually helps convert our T4 to our T3. So these are thyroid hormones, and thyroid hormones, we make TSH, obviously, and then the thyroid makes T4, which is inactive, and then T3, which is active. So the T3 is the active form, and that's what we need in order for us to help clear out estrogen. So if we are having hormones that are not being made properly or slower, so things like hypothyroidism, we are not clearing estrogen the way we should be. We also know that progesterone is made when the thyroid communicates to the ovaries. So if there's not enough thyroid hormone, we're not going to make progesterone.
That makes a lot of sense. So besides the hormone, what are other benefits of magnesium?
Well, magnesium helps with sleep. It helps with stress. It helps with inflammation. It helps with blood sugar balance. All of these things are really important, and they all play a role in hormones, right? So our HPA axis, if we're stressed, it's not going to give you a good production of sex hormones. So things like estrogen and progesterone, things like sleep. Sleep really disturbs our hormone balance. It also disturbs our insulin, our blood glucose. And we know that insulin resistance and hormone balance often have a connection. So that is really, really important. It helps with inflammation. We know an inflamed body is not going to produce hormones, or it's not going to produce good hormone balance. So these are all things that are big touch points where magnesium plays a big role.
Why do you think there are so much magnesium deficiency then? Because up to like 20% of the population actually deficient in magnesium. What do you think that was the reason?
It's actually close to 60% of deficiency.
Wow.
Yeah. And what it is we have to remember what depletes magnesium. So stress depletes magnesium, sugar depletes magnesium, alcohol depletes magnesium. So these are three big things that, everybody is basically has some exposure to during the day. But then, of course, things like medications. And so we are expending magnesium quicker than we're taking it in. And so a lot of us are in a deficient state. And when we look at, when we give magnesium for something like PMS, we're doing that because that person is already deficient in that mineral. And so the magnesium deficiency, if it's not corrected, it just keeps going and going and going, and the body runs on empty, and then we have symptoms. But yeah, so the deficiency is very high, and it's not talked about a lot. And unfortunately, there are other vitamins and minerals that get much more attention, but magnesium does so much more in the body, and so is really, really important. And that's really what my job is, to educate and get that out there so that we don't have this, not knowing piece when it comes to magnesium.
Yeah, you mentioned a PMS. So why do women lose magnesium when they menstruate?
Yeah, so it's not quite like that. But what happens is during menstruation or during your period, your hormones elevate. Most times it can be estrogen. And then the higher estrogen is, the lower your magnesium, because estrogen depletes magnesium. And so what happens in some individuals, they can be up to 50, they can lose up to 50% of their magnesium during a cycle bleed, because they may have these hormones that are imbalanced. And then if we have higher levels of estrogen, then that kind of depletes our magnesium. And of course, the problem here is, if you have PMS where you have really bad cramps, or you have, a lot of clotting, you're going into the cycle completely depleted of magnesium. And, that leads to cramping and mood issues and all sorts of other things. So often the case is we really need to pump up that magnesium to make sure that the deficiency isn't there. But we also need to balance the hormones so that we're not in that position when it comes to having our cycles. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So how much magnesium should a person consume daily?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the recommended dietary allowance amount. That is not always going to be enough for some individuals, and for some individuals, it's too much. And that's why I always recommend working with somebody to figure out whether, you have the right dosage. Because one of the things I get from patients all the time is, oh, I tried that, it didn't work. And then when I find out what the dosage was that they were taking, of course it didn't work, it wasn't enough. So it's important that you either test and know what your numbers are, or that you work with someone just so that you can actually dose therapeutically for what it is that you want to address. And two, just for interactions, right? There are a couple of interactions with magnesium with certain medications, so we have to be careful. The recommended dietary allowance amount for magnesium is 310 to 400 milligrams per day. Yeah.
So what are some good source of magnesium-rich food then? Like, when do people need to think about, supplementation versus can they actually get enough on the diet if they consume a good diet?
They can, but then we have to look at the other things that might be depleting the magnesium. So if you have a lot of stress in your life and you love sugar and you are on medication such as a PPI or blood pressure medication or, birth control pills, things like that, then you likely probably are not going to get enough from a diet. I always like to start with a diet because that's, of course, the best way. But some high magnesium rich foods include leafy greens, avocado, salmon, omega-3s, right? Dark chocolate, some of the grains. So quinoa is high in magnesium. Pumpkin seeds is probably the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to magnesium. I believe it's half a cup will give you pretty much your RDA, so your recommended dietary allowance. Yeah. So that's probably the best one to incorporate. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely add to your magnesium stores by including some magnesium rich foods. And they're always healthy foods anyway. So why not kill two birds with one stone and have a healthy diet and get your magnesium?
Absolutely. This is interesting, kind of reminded me, we did one IG live to talk about seed cycling, and the pumpkin seed is actually one of the seed that's used in seed cycling. Now you're mentioning magnesium, kind of rings a bell. It makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And the pumpkin seed is used in the first half of the cycle, right? So, and you have to remember that that's usually when we are in a time of estrogen, right? So, yeah, it's definitely, there's a connection there for sure.
So will you describe your most ideal magnesium-rich dinner?
Okay, magnesium-rich dinner. I'd probably have salmon, have some leafy greens or a nice leafy green salad with lots of color. I would probably have a little bit of quinoa if I wanted some carbohydrates with that. And then I probably would have some dark chocolate for dessert.
Oh, nice. I love the dessert part.
Sometimes we need something sweet, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are different type of magnesium supplements, and how do you choose one for yourself?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different magnesium supplements. We're going to go through the top ones and the ones that have the most research. There's probably, I think there's 17 or 18 different forms of magnesium, but we're just going to touch on, I believe, 4 or 5. So one of the top magnesium supplements that has a lot of research, is very well tolerated, is good even for people who might have digestive issues or nutrient absorption issues, is magnesium bisglycinate. So magnesium bisglycinate or glycinate, I know there's two ways that they promote this magnesium. It is great for stress reduction, sleep. It's a nice all around form of magnesium. So if I want to touch on a lot of different things, I usually choose that magnesium because it can kind of get everywhere. And I also choose it when somebody has absorption issues because it doesn't require stomach acid in order to be absorbed. And so that is a really important part. Then there's magnesium citrate. And I use this specifically for digestive issues and for things like constipation. It is a little bit more harder on the bowels, so we have to be careful there. Because we use it for constipation, it draws water into the colon and allows for a softer and easier bowel movement. But we also see with higher doses, sometimes it can cause diarrhea, so we have to adjust and work up. Citrate has also been researched for migraines and has a lot of good evidence research behind that as well. And I believe in one of the studies, it was like 600 milligrams for citrate. But again, you need to work up to that because if you're not used to that, citrate can cause loose bowel movements. Then the other one is malate. And I use malate a lot for muscle, joint pain, athletes, real fatigue. So chronic fatigue is really good with malate. Fibromyalgia is where I use malate because of the tender points and the pain that they often experience. And it's very good for any type of fatigue, whether it's from athletes or, somebody who has chronic fatigue syndrome. And then we have L-threonate, which is the only magnesium that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And so it's very good at anything cognitive, memory. It's good at cognitive health. It's good at anxiety, mood disorders, depression. I've used it for migraines. I've used it for headaches, those kinds of things. So yeah, it's really anything to do with the brain or head, any in that, I use the L-threonate for sure. And then, let me see, we've got citrate. Yeah, and then I use Epsom salts. And Epsom salt is obviously not ingested, but we use that for baths. And it's very good for just reducing stress, keeping, muscles and tendons and all these things nice and loose. And it works really well. And it kind of can hit a number of different things. And it works really well at night to help prepare for sleep as well.
Wow. Wow. This is like overwhelming. I had no idea. You'd think like, okay, magnesium as a single mineral that you can just buy any kind of supplement, but no, like they actually have different kind of functions that depending on your condition, you should be choosing the right one for yourself.
Right. You will have the best results if you use the magnesium that is much related to the concern that you're trying to achieve or the concern you're trying to address. Now, I want to put in one thing. Magnesium oxide is another form of magnesium that is sold out there. It's very cheap. It's very inexpensive. However, we don't absorb it. And so at best, it's a good laxative. But it's not a magnesium that I would be using to help me sleep or help me get, with stress or even with insulin resistance because we don't absorb it. And unfortunately, they sell a lot of oxide. And they also put oxide into a lot of the magnesium formulas. And the thing you have to watch there is that you figure out how much of the oxide is part of that formula. Because they often don't put it on the label. And when you call the manufacturer, if they don't want to disclose it, then I would probably put that.
That's a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if 95% of your magnesium is oxide and only 5% is glycinate or bisglycinate, you're not getting what you really need to be getting. Yeah.
Wow, that's really good tip. So everyone be sure to read the labels, and then when you're unclear, contact the manufacturers. That's the same thing we do, also letting people know about detoxing and then products is if the product have no transparency, that's not a good product for you to use.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And you mentioned in terms of the dosage for the citrate, but is there any other like a dosage guidance for other type of magnesium?
There are, and it's very dependent upon what you're trying to. You really have to look at how much magnesium is the individual going through, or how much are they dispensing. So if they're on a medication they're taking every single day, or if they have a lot of stress in their life, or if they consume a lot of sugar, it takes 54 molecules of magnesium to process 1 molecule of sugar. So if you're a sugar addict, you are blowing through magnesium like crazy. So we need to address all of the areas where you might be depleting, and then looking at the diet. Okay, are they bringing in magnesium? And then from there, what does the research say for certain conditions? So some conditions will require 1,000 milligrams of magnesium. That doesn't mean you have to supplement all 1,000 of that. You could take some from food. There's also magnesium oils. The only problem with the transdermal, we don't know how much you actually absorb, and it's very different from one individual to the next.
That makes a lot of sense. I know you have a magic mineral ebook. Tell us about that, so maybe people can get all the good stuff from that ebook.
Yeah. So I after I started posting, I just got a lot of questions, and it was like, on the different forms, and how do we deplete magnesium, and what can we do not to deplete our levels, and things like that. And so what I've basically done is put it all together in this 50-page plus ebook, where I have gone over what the deficiencies are, why we're deficient, how we can solve some of those deficiencies. I go over health conditions and what different types of magnesiums we want to use for different health conditions. I also include recipes, and of course, all the references are there. If you ever want to check out the, papers, they're all in there as well. So it's basically a one-stop kind of shop where I've gone through and just put in all the information that we need.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think if someone, our audience's question, I think they can probably find the answer in the ebook. I'll read a few. So someone asked about the clean, non-toxic brands of magnesium salt for detox bath.
You know what? Epsom salts, so this is the other thing that's happening now. Epsom salts are being sold in all different flavors and scents, and like I go and buy Epsom salt, and now I can get eucalyptus and lavender, and unfortunately they're not even just essential oil, they're fragrances that they're putting in these as Epsom salts. So if you're buying that and you're using Epsom salts and they have fragrances in there, you're kind of defeating the purpose of what you're trying to do, because not only do Epsom salt baths detox because it goes through the skin, but you're also then bringing in these thousands of chemicals that they're putting in this fragrance. And so just buying plain Epsom salts, like just go to the drugstore, buy plain Epsom salts. That's all you have to do. And, you will just have the Epsom salts. Do not, if you want to put a scent in, buy some essential oil, put a couple of drops into your bath with your Epsom salt, and you're way further ahead than buying the fragrances.
That's really good tip. That's also the tip that we generally give to people. Avoid all fragrance at whatever cost. Just buy the original one. They're probably cheaper. And then fragrances are actually made of more than 3,000 chemicals. And then one of the major chemical is phthalates, which is a hormone disruptor. That's one thing we tell people, like, always avoid fragrance. Go for fragrance free. Don't trust on any aroma or even unscented, because even unscented is actually a scent.
Right.
And then
right.
Even essential oils, make sure you check with the manufacturers that their essential oils are pure, and then processing food grade processing plants, because that could also if they actually process the essential oil in plastic, that would actually introduce additional contaminants into that essential oil. So go fragrance free. That's the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Wow, this is really great information. And somebody asked, I'm assuming they can find the ebook on the website, right? Somebody trying to find the ebooks.
Yeah, or you can even go to my my Instagram page, and it's in the links there. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody asked about where can I find ebook with it. Where we find a list anywhere with their functions. I guess this is talking about the supplements.
For the magnesium, different forms of magnesium. It's in my ebook for sure, but also I have several posts on my page that go through those functions, and they're obviously way more detail in the book, but there's only so much space on an Instagram post.
Right. Everyone, please check out the ebook, because I think all these questions that we're getting, everything is actually in the ebook. So urge everyone to check it out.
Yeah.
And I know you need to take a personalized approach, because everyone's have different condition. What you need is really different from what other people need. So, what a session with you look like? Because I feel like people can really benefit from working with you to figure out what exactly they need, and then, speed up the process, because for yourself without the training, to trying to understand what's going on, that would take a while.
Yeah, for sure. So at our first session is always really a history session taking. So I basically ask a lot of questions, and it's basically getting all the details about that individual and their health history, their medical history. And then, of course, from there, deriving a plan to, do whatever it is that individual wants. The first visit is always the longest visit because it is so detailed. And then from there, we have a treatment plan that's drawn up that's individual to that person and their concern. And then going forward, it really depends on the issue as to, what our follow-up times are. But we usually have a follow-up once in the first 3 months. Sometimes it's sooner. And then we kind of see how things are going and work down from there. But yeah.
Awesome.
We work alongside, I do a lot of co-managing with family physicians and stuff like that, where, they might have a insulin problem, or they might have a hormone problem. And so they're getting, some blood work run through their physician, and then I'm running additional blood work. And, it used to be a bit of a, we didn't really communicate well with other medical doctors, but I find keeping them in the loop obviously helps the overall care for that patient. So yeah.
Absolutely. I know we're a little bit over time. Do you still have a few minutes for a couple more questions, or you just have to really engage the audience today?
Yeah.
Someone asked, should we take a higher amount during our periods? I'm assuming yes.
If you are depleted, again, getting your magnesium checked. And here's another really important tip is when you are getting your magnesium run, or getting your provider to run your magnesium levels, we really want to be looking at the RBC magnesium level, not serum magnesium, because that's only accounting for 1% of the magnesium. So most of the magnesium is in our bones and our tissues. And so if we want to look at an actual realistic measure, we need to look at RBC magnesium. And so that needs to be stated, because oftentimes they are just running serum, because that is part of the electrolyte panel, and you will almost always be in the middle range, if not near the bottom. It's not, because it's only looking at that 1%. The RBC magnesium, you want to be at the high end of that range. Middle and low, you still see deficiencies. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really good too.
Yeah. So you really kind of want to figure out where you are, and then decide, okay, if I'm depleted, then maybe I should be, and maybe it's a preventative things. So maybe you take magnesium throughout the month, and so that you don't have to superdose during the cycle. But yeah.
Right. And then somebody asked, if you had a complete hysterectomy, how much magnesium should a woman take?
Again, it depends on what exactly you're looking for. It's really hard to determine that because I don't have any health history. I don't have any lifestyle factors, anything like that. But you know, you need to be getting at least the RDA amount. That is the minimum amount we should be getting on a daily basis. And then it's really important to work with somebody because I don't know what your issue is. I don't know what your medical history is. And it's very dependent on that because it is so easily depleted and it's involved in so many different functions in our body. Like just another quick important function that magnesium has is that it is required in order for vitamin D to be activated in the liver. So if you don't have magnesium or you're deficient in magnesium, you're going to have a hard time making vitamin D. And you know, what is the other vitamin that has a large deficiency in the population?
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
Right.
So.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of primary care doctors recommend people to take vitamin D, but nobody really recommend magnesium. So if you don't have the magnesium, even if you take the vitamin D supplement, you wouldn't process it.
Right. Right. And then you run the risk of building up calcium. And then the calcium, you know, instead of it going to the bones, it starts going to the arteries and into the kidneys. And then we get kidney stones and calcifications in places we don't want to have calcifications. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this person asked, is it better to take more than one type of magnesium?
Sometimes, depending upon what your issues is, yeah, like mixing and matching your forms can be very helpful. I often will do that with patients who are stressed or going through a really anxious kind of time and they're constipated, right? So we kind of need two different magnesiums. So, you know, I'll look at a bisglycinate for their stress and anxiety, and then I'll look at a citrate for their constipation. While we're working on the root cause of what's causing that constipation, we're giving the citrate to just help things move along. So yeah, oftentimes we will dose more than one form of magnesium. Yeah.
Someone has been taking Nature Made. Is that a good brand? Is that a good one?
Unfortunately, there are a lot of different brands, and I'm in Ontario, so I don't know every single brand, unfortunately. So I can't say. I don't know that brand. I think the big thing is, like you had mentioned earlier, is really read your labels. So read your labels, look at what they're putting in there. Believe it or not, I have seen on more than one occasion that they're putting in flavoring and colors into these magnesium supplements, especially powder forms, I guess to make them taste better or to, you know, improve the palate part of that. So really, really check the label. That is my most biggest advice I could give. Yeah.
Yeah. One part about checking the label, we also let people know is make sure if it's in a capsule form, make sure it's a vegetarian capsule, not any other kind of capsule, because if it's actually a capsule made of plasticizers, you would get that phthalate exposure again. So make sure you check the labels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone asked about the L3, L8, and that's good for stress, right? That's the one that crosses the blood-brain barrier.
L3 and 8, yeah, it can be good for stress. It's really good for like mood issues. So if you have a lot of anxiety, stress, right? So anxiety often causes stress. Stress often sometimes causes anxiety. So those types of things, it's very good for mood-related issues for sure. Yeah.
And someone asked about magnesium stearate.
That is, so it's not a very common form. They sometimes use that as a filler or binder in some, you know, tablets, capsules, those kinds of things. I don't use it, so I don't have a lot of information on it just because I know that it's used as a filler in some supplements.
Unfortunately, filler is not a good thing. And also make sure you check your label about the magnesium oxide that Dr. Barb mentioned.
Yes.
Someone asked about adding Himalayan salt to the magnesium salt for bath.
Yeah, you could definitely do that because Himalayan salt is kind of has all the trace minerals, and so you can definitely do that to increase, your bath experience and your detoxification and all those things.
Someone asked about magnesium spray.
Those are the magnesium oils and the magnesium sprays, and they are great, like especially if you have like really sore muscles or you've gone hiking and you have a knee that's maybe, achy and tender. They work really well. The only thing we don't know is how much you actually absorb. So we can't confidently say, oh, 5 pumps of the oil is 300 milligrams, right? So unfortunately that we have no way of knowing. And unfortunately, transdermal applications vary from person to person. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. I know we went over, but thank you so much for this such great information. So we're going to include all the resources under the post promoting this Instagram live, and obviously we'll save this video. So for anyone who joined late, you want to watch what we talked about before, you can watch it. But everyone be sure to follow Dr. Barb at Dr. Barb Woegerer. So you can find the link here too, and then check out the ebook and then book a session with Dr. Barb.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's been a pleasure, and I'm so thrilled that there's so many people that are enthusiastic about this mineral because it really does a lot, and I don't think it gets enough attention, and that is my mission.
Definitely not. Definitely not. This is so great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.